what you said about the political philosophy regarding the web is something like Web 2.0, just partly because we have the idea of the individual rights, the expression of yourself. I mean, this is what Web 2.0 is about. Is that something that really could just simply grow on our development we had before?
Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think that there is a certain attitude that underlies Web 2.0 type phenomenon that's really more of a cultural attitude, which is very widespread, of course, in the U.S. and Europe, maybe less so in some other places.
Which is a Western phenomenon.
Very much this idea that that each person should be able to express themselves, and that not just should be legally allowed to, but also that it's a good thing, right? That we support it and we like it, and if someone. If we have a friend who's written a novel, we congratulate them. We have a party, even if privately we read the novel. Oh, that's not very good, but still, good job, right? I'm glad you wrote this, right? Because we think it's wonderful that people are expressing their ideas, and so the Web 2.0 philosophy, of course, builds on that. That why should you, if you take your picture of some famous monument and you upload it to the web for everyone to see, we don't think, oh, well, who are you? Why would you publish a photo? You're not a professional photographer, and how dare you do that? No one says that. We say, oh, this is great. You put your photos up, and I think that it's nice.
So is that then now really a cultural conflict in the Huntington sense, if China and Google really get to battle each other? Is that really something?
That one's very interesting, right? Because there's a lot of parameters and a lot of things involved in that one. Certainly, I'm not sure what the U.S. government is going to do to participate in that conflict. I can see them being either very helpful or very harmful, right? In the sense of, if for their own political reasons they want to, maybe they're concerned about China's growth in Africa, where China's become very active. So maybe they want to fight with China about something, and so they pick a fight over Google in a disruptive and harmful way, where maybe Google and China can find a way to work things out. I don't know, but again, it's very it's a very interesting
there's
very interesting set of things going on.
So coming back to knowledge. And Wikipedia, we hear a lot about the information overflow here and how to systemize and categorize the information we get. Is that in the future, will we be just able to store certain kind of knowledge in our brain and the rest we know is somewhere stored outside, maybe in Wikipedia? Or do we still have a need to know some things within our brains?
Well, I think that we have always done that, right? We've always, to some extent, we're aware of. There are things that I remember and that I directly know, and I can call up to my memory instantaneously. And there are things that I read one time in a book, or that I know where I can find it if I need to find it. And I actually think that often the way this is presented is the idea that, well, now that it's become easier to store things outside, maybe we'll have less in our brains. But I don't think that's actually true. I think we end up having more of both. In other words, I know more about Haiti than my counterpart 50 years ago would have. Simply because 50 years ago, if there's an earthquake in Haiti and a big tragedy there, I would read what's in the newspaper each day, and I would think to myself, wow, I wish I could remember. I wish I knew more about Haiti. I should go to the library and look that up. But I didn't have time. It's too difficult. Instead, what I did, as soon as I heard about this, I said, oh, well, I remember there was like Papa Doc, the dictator, and Baby Doc, but who was that again, and what was the whole story? I've forgotten the whole history of Haiti, but I know they had lots of corruption many years, right? So I went and I reread the history of Haiti in Wikipedia. And so now, because it was accessible outside my brain, it's not that I didn't need to store it in my brain, it's that I was able to get it into my brain, whereas in the past I probably would have just said, I know they had some dictators, but I don't remember what it was all about.
Yeah, but what we do now and what we see on Facebook quite clearly is that we have this much information overflow that I refer to my friends who tell me, well, there's an article about, or remember that thing.
No question, right? The information overflow problem, right, is enormous. I mean, it is for people who are speaking, English or German or French or any of the major languages that are major on the web. The amount of information that's available to you just like that is far more than you could ever possibly digest, of course. and this is why we need, this is one of the purposes of Wikipedia, is that, like basically it gives you the concise summary of what you need to know about some topic, so you can move on. You don't have to sift through hundreds of web pages. You just say, oh, what's the history of Haiti? I know where to go find it, and I get what I need to know, and then I'm done. It's actually something I think is very interesting to contemplate, is how there is a difference between the developed world and the developing world in this regard. So if you are, if you're speaking Swahili, and you hear there's some tragedy in Haiti, and you think, oh wow, I want to know more about Haiti, but I don't speak English. I speak Swahili. Now I go on the internet and I search, and there's just no information for me. I have a very small amount of information. The number of books translated or published in Swahili, very small, and so forth. So for those people, the web is a place where they're actually, it's the opposite thing, right? I'm hopeful that as Wikipedia grows in those languages, it will be, that we'll make information accessible that they didn't have at all before.
Right.
Whereas for you, what I hope is that we provide you with a quick summary of, because you had too much information. For them, I hope that they have some information at all.
We are both now digital natives, but if you remember your childhood or when you were younger, how do you see that? How could we live with all that devices?
It's really amazing. I mean, it's funny because I think of myself as a digital native because but really, I don't know, I was one of the first people I knew. My mother bought a computer back in 1979, I think. So before the IBM PC came out, I've had computers in my life since the very first computers came out. But on the other hand, my daughter is a true digital native, and so much better at her age. Well, when I was her age, we didn't have computers, right? She's 9 now. I think we got our first computer when I was 12. But now, at 9, she's, in many respects, she's as good as I am at many things. I think I can still program a little bit better than her, but, just things like, she just got an iPod, and it took her about 10 minutes to send me an email from her iPod, and I didn't even know iPods could send email, So I said, wow, I didn't know it could do that, right? She's like, oh yeah, just hook the Wi-Fi.
Have you a feeling I'm from a village, like in vineyards and all, very, very countryside, and I remember this time it's been very slow. Everything has been slower from my today's point of view, but I think sometimes we're more considerate, maybe more reflective. Is there something that you have in your mind if you think back?
There is something about that, I think I'm not alone in struggling with this thing. I recently took a several days hiking trip into the woods in a place where there's no cell phone access, with my daughter, and it was a thoughtful and reflective time. I remember sitting on the edge of a lake, and we were discussing time travel and speed of sound, and it was a really wonderful experience. Whereas, in the day-to-day life, sometimes you don't have time to stop and reflect about things and have a human conversation as much as we should. But I'm not too worried about it. I love the internet, so.
We all do. Just one last question when you said that. I mean, we had earlier in the television era, we would just sit all around the television and we would speak about what we saw on TV. Today, everybody has his own laptop or his own device, so there's a less in communication about what we are doing in the web. Is that a correct observation?
I think it's an incorrect. It's correct and incorrect observation. Because. Let me just take an example. What are you doing day to day, or what are you studying? What are you reading? Right. Well, I know you a little bit. We've met a few times. We have some friends in common, and so forth. Right. Well, now today we're connected on Facebook, and if you send out an interesting link, I may follow the link and read it. Right. And I say, oh well, yeah, there's this guy I know in Germany. I don't know him well, but he sends out interesting links, and I kind of know what you're thinking, or not in depth, right? Yeah. But there's that, and then with closer friends, right? You communicate with them a lot more than you maybe would have in the past about what they're reading. I have friends all the time who are sending out, interesting articles that they've read, intellectual things or silly things, And so there is an enhanced degree of communication with our friends. I think most people have experienced the phenomenon. People I knew in high school